Are you looking for a way to deepen your prayer life and faith this Advent season? A Contemplative Las Posadas by Bill Snyder is a novena that offers reflections based on the traditional Mexican devotion that reenacts the journey of Saint Joseph and the Blessed Virgin Mary from Nazareth to Bethlehem. The ecclesiastically approved devotional is available for purchase for only $4.99 on our website, patchworkheart.org, or emailing info@patchworkheart.org.
Welcome to the Sowing Hope podcast. This is a show all about implanting hope in our hearts. I'm Bill Snyder, joined by my friend Ann DeSantis. We're glad you're here for our uplifting conversation about faith and how it sustains our hearts through all the seasons of life. Thanks for walking with us. And good evening and Merry Christmas, everybody. This is the Sowing Hope podcast, and thank you so much for joining us here on Sowing Hope. It's wonderful to be with you wherever you are on this Christmas Eve. Maybe you're underneath the tree putting some presents together and taking a listen to our podcast. But we thank you so much for joining us on this Christmas Eve and being here in faith with us. So, as always, I am joined by my friend and wonderful co-host, Ann DeSantis. How are you? And Merry Christmas, Ann. You got to unmute, Ann. Unmute.
I'm here, yes. Good to be here. Merry Christmas, everyone. It's so good to be here with all of you. Wishing you a wonderful Christmas season. We're here.
I know, right?
We're here.
It's incredible that we're right here, standing on the cusp of it. So anyway, we have a wonderful guest with us today or tonight. So share with us a little bit about her.
Yes, we have two wonderful guests. We have Linda Tino and her son Gregory, who is an author. And we have so much to learn about them with their family life and not only the challenges, but the victories. So Linda, I was wondering if you could tell us about you and your family and your son Gregory, who's right there with you today.
Yes, thank you so much for having us. In a million years, I never thought we would be doing something like this when you hear our story. My son is 27. You may hear him talking in the background. He has autism, diagnosed at age 2. Started out, we thought developing normally, starting to speak, and then around age 2 started losing his words, withdrawing, and diagnosed at 2.5 with autism. And so we went through all our years, not knowing the intellect of our son, had some tough times, lots of challenges, he had aggression, and he was very, what we found out now, very misunderstood. So the way it happened was a couple years ago, a friend of mine who also has an autistic son had been taking her son to this Spelling to Communicate session in Herndon, Virginia, with a woman named Elizabeth Bossler. And her son is very similar to mine, where you can't have a conversation with him. He has words, but he'll, a lot of it is scripted from TV shows and stuff like that. And she had been telling me she'd been taking her son to these letterboard sessions, and she was telling me the things her son was able to say, and I was amazed. So she ended up having this woman come and do a workshop here in Springfield. And that day, it was a Mother's Day of 2017, best Mother's Day gift I ever got. We went in for one of the sessions, and what they do is she works off the premise that people with autism have apraxia, which is a mind-body disconnect. Their intellect is fine, but it's much like a stroke victim, where they can think a thought, but they can't get it out to their body and make themselves let us know how intelligent they are and speak. And so they were reading him this age-appropriate story, and they asked him questions pertaining to the story. And the whole time while the woman is talking, he's talking like he is now over top of her. He had his earphones on. I'm like, he's not even paying attention. And she was reading a story to him that to me was over possibly his intellect. Because at the time I'd been reading him Dr. Seuss, you know, and he was watching Barney. And she started asking him these questions, and she would hold the letterboard in front of him, and he would spell out the answer. He was learning how to spell out the answer in front of me, and they were simple questions, but I was amazed that he was able to do it, being that I didn't think he was paying attention. And at the end of the session, by the end of the hour, he was gaining control of his arm better, being able to do this. And the final question she asked him was, she had been reading a story about an astronaut, and she said, would you ever want to go into space? And he responded with, no thanks, my world is right here. And it was the most, that changed the trajectory of all of our lives, because it told me so much that of his intellect. He understood what we were saying. I could tell by his response, he was happy with his life. It was, I could relive that moment over and over again. It's been amazing ever since.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I'm visualizing this, and I can understand how that would have been such a wonderful moment, right? Because it was like a connection that you had and an understanding that you didn't have before that time.
Yes. Wow. And, you know, from that time on, we realized we had been underestimating his ability. And we just started treating him differently. You couldn't help but treat him differently. We would talk to him differently. Even if he couldn't respond to us, we would make sure we would talk about things in front of him that we normally wouldn't have. And he just, I don't know, it changed everything about his life. Even that simple thing of just treating him like he was a smart guy who understood what was going on. I don't know. It changed his life in so many ways. And since then, you know, we've been doing the letterboard. We do letterboard sessions every day. It took a year. The whole premise of it is when you point to letters on a letterboard, you're using the upper gross motor muscle in your arm. And for people with apraxia, that's easier than typing on a keyboard, because a keyboard uses fine motor. And so he's been able to express himself so much. He has a blog that he writes, and he writes almost every other day on this blog. It's called The Autistic Mind Finally Speaks. And the stuff that he writes about, he writes beautiful poetry. And what ended up happening is my sister and I spent this whole summer over the pandemic putting all his blog posts into book form, and we have a book on Amazon also entitled The Autistic Mind Finally Speaks. And it's a beautiful, beautiful book of all of his writings, illustrated by 4 other non-speaking autistics. And it just showcases what people with autism are capable of. They're so underestimated. When I think back of all the years in school, you know, and, you know, he had beautiful teachers and wonderful people helping him, but we all, and even me as a parent, underestimated what they're capable of.
You know, that's incredible. And I'm just blown away by, you know, your incredible story. I'm just blown away by it. And I think it's a beautiful story for Christmas Eve, and thank you for being here. I would love it if you know, I think it's absolutely fascinating and incredible how Gregory communicates, right? And so you know, I know we prepared some questions ahead of time for him during this podcast, and he was able to respond to some of them. Can we go through some of them? And the other thing I'd like to be able to highlight on the program is maybe to ask toward the end, if we can, maybe ask him a question, and he can use the letterboard and you can kind of spell it out, because I think that would be a really neat thing for listeners to understand. So could we maybe just ask some of those questions, and kind of go through those that you have. So I guess the first one was, tell us about your journey since childhood and your struggles. And I know he had some time to reflect on this and write a beautiful response. So
he did.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So he said about that, he said, autism kept me silent for about 24 years of my life. And then a miracle occurred on Mother's Day of 2017. Autism and I were able to answer questions on a letterboard and show everyone that I was in here. Best day of my life. Talk about a good Mother's Day present. And it was. Oh my goodness. Makes me cry just even.
I feel like I'm going to cry.
I know.
Honestly. I mean, that is incredible. I thank God, and this show is all about sowing hope into broken hearts. We are a podcast of faith. And it's so to hear this story on Christmas Eve, where I know that your friends and our friends of Sowing Hope are listening. It's such a wonderful gift to people who feel like they're losing hope. So I want to thank Gregory and thank you for sharing, to being with us.
I thank God every day for what he did for us. And I just want to say that one thing I have learned these past few years, my son is special, but I would almost bet my life that the majority of people with autism have this capability. My son goes to Inside Voice in Springfield to do his letterboard sessions. They're a mom and pop place that is run by Colleen and Frank Foti and the Foti family. And right now they're up to like 30 something clients. And all of them that have gone in there are learning to speak, and many of them have their own blogs themselves. I mean, these are these kids that have sat together in school, some of them since age 4 and 5, sat side by side, could never talk to each other. And I'm telling you, you guys, they have these social groups where they talk about different topics, and they'll have them all sitting there together talking about stuff that goes over my head, and they respond back and forth. They joke back and forth. They weren't able to speak to each other for 20 years. I can't even tell you how much it's a miracle. I'm not kidding.
Yeah,
it is a miracle.
It's incredible. It's just wow. I mean, I'm blown away, and I'm so glad to have you, and I'm so glad to have your story and Gregory's story on our program. This is so impressive. I would maybe love to hear Gregory's response too on how God helped him through the challenges of his special needs, in his life. I mean, I would love to hear that response.
So this is what he said the other day to that question. God is the person who is always there. I pray to him every night with my parents. At times, God feels far away. Then you need to pray harder. You are seldom alone. And it's very true.
And I can tell we're looking at each other right now on Zoom. So I can see Bill, and I can see you and Gregory, and I can see the look on his face when you read that you could tell that he was reacting to it. So he's so proud, and we are so proud of him. It's amazing. I'll tell you another amazing thing, so people with autism, they listen to every single thing that's going on around them. And when he was young, my husband is a child of 2 Italian immigrants. And so he spoke Italian in our house a lot. I don't know Italian, with my mother-in-law in the house. And one day we were talking with Gregory, and he told us on the letterboard that he knows Italian.
And I go,
right.
you're kidding, because none of us had ever taught him. He had just listened, And my husband goes, I want to see if he really can. And he was talking in Italian to Gregory and asking him questions, not simple questions like, what's your name? Like questions that I didn't even know really what he was saying. And my son was translating it on the letterboard. Like, just from him listening. I don't know. Even I couldn't do that.
Wow. I love to have him around because, as a matter of fact, my in-laws are from Italy, and they're right from Italy, in fact. And my husband's second language was English until he was 6 years old.
Yeah, same as my husband.
Yeah. Oh my, maybe they know each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, I understand. It would be nice to have someone around that understood Italian.
God.
He's smiling. I see that. The next question that we had on that list that we had given you in advance was, do you have advice for families with children with special needs to persevere?
So he said, the advice I have is to believe in your child's capability. Autism is a motor issue, not an intellectual one. Be an advocate for your child and never give up on them. And that is the truth. I know so many people, listen, this is a simple thing you can try with your kid. And I'm not saying you make up a letterboard at home and try yourself. There's a whole science behind it. So you kind of do need to get advice on how to do it. And I would suggest going to some place like the method that we use is spelling to communicate.
Okay.
It's not facilitated communication. There's been some controversy. Some people, judging by the way our kids look on the outside, they don't believe that they have this capability, and they think that the person doing the letterboard with them is somehow influencing what the person says. And I can just tell you, when I spell with him, I do not say anything. In the beginning, there's some verbal prompting when you're teaching your kid how to do it, but that fades away. And with him, I just told, I just told the letterboard, and he just spells. I don't say a word. I don't touch him. I don't influence what he says. It's all him.
That's amazing.
He was just.
Well, once again, as I see the smile on his face and the yep that we just heard, I think that he agrees, right?
Yeah. Yes.
I think that he agrees. And then that last question, at least we have two more after this, but what message do you have for people listening on the podcast as we celebrate our faith on Christmas Eve?
So Gregory said, autism and I are so thankful and glad that God has a plan for me.
No.
Hold on, buddy. At first, I didn't know what that plan was, but now I see it's to help others who can't speak. And he truly is an advocate. His main goal in writing this book that we wrote, The Autistic Mind Finally Speaks, is to raise awareness for people with autism so people will understand them better and realize their capabilities. It must be hard living a life of an autistic person. He has written some rather dark poetry of what it's like. Where you're locked in, you're basically locked in a jail cell. He would say sometimes you're thirsty, you want a drink, you can't even tell someone you want a drink of water. So it's not an easy life. And whatever we can do to make their lives easier. And I'm telling you, just what we've been doing with him and with the letterboard, it has changed his life in many, many ways. I don't know. He's just happier. We're giving him so many different experiences that he wouldn't have experienced. 3 years ago, if you would have told me my son was going to be talking on a podcast, I'd be like, you're crazy. I can't even. God is good. That's all.
God is good. I'm so grateful. We have to thank our friend Tracy Flynn.
Yes.
Tracy and I met years back because another thing that I do as a more of a hobby, but a commercial modeling and acting. And I met Tracy when we did a commercial for, I was more of a background, but for Comcast.
Okay.
And we met there on the set. So that was interesting. And then we've stayed in touch. So big shout out to Tracy and thank her for referring me to you and to Gregory. So,
Yes.
and I just want to say that what you were saying about how Gregory referred to it as being locked in a jail cell, I would send prayers also to those young children, right, who the parents don't know what you know, right?
Yes.
And they're still in that space where maybe the child is understanding a lot more than they realize.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that happen in your own life where you've met younger parents that they had breakthroughs as well?
Yes. My world right now is with the older kids because that's who we see. But yes, listen, some people with the letterboard start at age 5 and 6. So you can start young. You don't have to wait till 25 like my son. But, like, for example, one night, my son sits in the basement a lot on his computer, which is downstairs from where I am in the kitchen. And every night while I'm making dinner, I have the news on. And people with autism have very heightened senses. And he told me he can hear the news while he's downstairs. Now, he's got headphones on and he's watching YouTube videos. Yet he can hear the news. I know this sounds like I'm making this up. I
believe you.
Well, yeah.
And sometimes he would come upstairs and comment on something that I was like, how does he know that? Because I had just heard it on the news. And and then he told me on the letterboard that he can hear what's going on. And sometimes, like, there'll be disturbing stuff on the news. You're listening to what's going on with the pandemic, and he might be upset about something and I don't know what it is. And you find out later he's worried about the pandemic. I never in a million years, 3 years ago, would never talk to him about stuff like that because I wouldn't think he would understand. And so all these kids that are autistic, their parents think they're blissfully unaware of the pandemic and stuff going on in their lives. Believe me, they're listening, and talk to them like you would talk to anyone else. They may not be able to answer you back, but you can reassure them. You can make them feel better. I mean, autistic people lead a very anxious life. They do. So,
well, in my opinion, based on what you're telling me, and even from my own knowledge, they're a lot more intelligent than many of us. Right? I mean,
yes.
IQ wise, they're probably way, way up there, I would think, right?
Yeah. We, one of Gregory's friends, okay, buddy. One of Gregory's friends, he's very obsessed with birth dates, and you can tell him your birth date. You're born, like my birthday is June 22nd, 64. And he'll, like that, tell you what day of the week that was. You could pick any date. And dating back, you could say the day that anything that happened, and he'll tell you what day of the week it is. Their minds are like a computer. I mean, it's amazing. And all of them have their different strengths. I don't know if that necessarily is my son's strength, but he's a beautiful, beautiful writer. May I read to you something that he just wrote?
Please do.
Okay, so he wrote this the other day. I thought this was amazing. He entitled it, "The Autistic Man in a Normal Body." Autism and the man had been together for a really long time, 25 years to be exact. One day, God said, "I'm going to cure this man's autism." And so he did. The man woke up the next day and his body was normal. Autism had vanished. All of his senses were like a typical person. His body moved around with no effort, and he felt calm and relaxed. The man and autism had been together a long time, even longer than his most beloved friends and acquaintances, and he began to feel a loss. "This makes me a bit sad," said the man. I miss some of the beautiful parts of autism, like the vibrant colors I see when music plays, and the way I see the most intricate details of things and hear all the sounds surrounding me, both near and far. I'm going to ask God for my autism back. And so he did. The next day, he woke up and his friend autism was back. And the man realized that God sends you beauty in many ways. And sometimes you don't realize it until you lose them. Be happy for the blessings that you were given and try not to look in someone else's life. This is what God intended for you. He knows best.
Wow.
Oh, so beautiful. Gregory, thank you. Thank you for that.
Oh my God, you couldn't you couldn't say it better on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
You just couldn't say it better on Christmas.
Couldn't say it better.
Yeah.
And we're so grateful to talk about God and about faith, and that he's able to express that, because, you know, this is Christmas Eve and it's the celebration of the birth of Christ. What a better time to talk about that.
But yeah, I agree.
What a better time.
So I would. I don't know how best to approach it, but I would love to, ask more of a real time question
Sure.
of Gregory. And I don't necessarily have a question in mind. I don't know if he has any thoughts. I mean, I'm sure he's actively listening to our conversation.
He is.
So I don't know what he thinks of our conversation. If he has any comments that he'd like to share with us, based off what we have talked about already, and
Okay.
maybe just start there.
Okay. THANK YOUFOR. Thank you for BEING, being, SUPPORTIVE, supportive, OF, of, AUTISTICS, of autistics, AND, and go ahead. Now he just told me he made a mistake. He hit a red X of autistics. Okay, go ahead. LIKE, like, ME, me, AND, and MY, my, FRIENDS. Like he said, like autistics, like me and my friends. Yeah.
Of course. You know what? I'm already going to say, and I know Bill will agree, we have to do another episode. How's that?
Yes. We would love
We'll do
that.
another one. We'll have you back again, too.
Yeah.
For a part 2, maybe a part 2, a part 3.
All right. We're up for part 10. We don't care.
No, I want listeners to understand, they can't see, we can see each other right now on Zoom, but they can't. And I just want you to, understand the visual that we're getting, where Gregory is, touching basically a laminated card with the alphabet on it. And then on the reverse side, there is numbers, it looks like, as well.
Yeah.
And so, this is, clearly groundbreaking for him. I mean, just for us to be able to ask, questions and get a real time response. I mean, I'm just blown away, by that, and I'm so excited for our listeners right now to understand, what's going on, because I think a lot of times, when you shed light on an issue, when you shed light on a topic like this, I think people don't get enough to see behind the realism of of what this looks like. I mean, we're hearing his voice next to you, Tina, and we're hearing his responses. And I think there's something so beautiful that you've opened up a window into this whole process, this whole life. And not many people are, number one, willing to show their weaknesses like you are, and how beautiful that can be when it becomes a strength, like you were sharing earlier in that beautiful piece he wrote. This is a incredible strength of not only character but faith. And it's so beautiful to see this window open, and I just hope our listeners tonight are touched by that.
I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are. Let's go to the next question. I know we have two more questions that we had talked about in advance. How has your faith gotten you through tough times?
So Gregory said for that, I think that being a spiritual person and a person who believes there is a higher force helps you feel less alone in this world. At times you may question if God is listening, but you find that he always is. I know he went through many times, as did I, where you feel like maybe God wasn't listening. And I don't know, 5 years ago, sometimes I'd be sitting there saying, is this how our lives are going to be? I had a son who, he would get aggressive sometimes when he was frustrated, and you worry about his future, what's going to happen to him when we're gone. And I don't know, God works in mysterious ways, I'm telling you.
He does. Absolutely.
I just hope more people can have this experience. If the parents of these kids can just believe in them and just try, you just have to try. And some people, like my son, took to this very quickly, and we saw his ability quickly. There are others it may take weeks or months of practice, but it changes their world. For example, for little things, like if you say to my son, what do you want for lunch? And his mouth, he'll say to you, grilled cheese, grilled cheese, grilled cheese. So you assume he wants a grilled cheese. And then I'll put the letterboard in front of him and he'll spell out, please don't listen to my mouth. I want peanut butter. So what I'm telling you is, can you imagine how frustrating that must be to be an autistic person? You really don't want what you're asking for, but you can't stop your body from doing that. It's got to be rough. It's got to be a rough life for them.
Yeah. But incredibly groundbreaking that you're able to recognize that and see. It has to be frustrating for parents too. I mean, that's incredible, right? I mean, the amount of frustration. Okay, you make a grilled cheese, you put it in front of them, and they don't eat it, they don't want it. And so for you to be able to say, okay, I'm going to put this letterboard and access, I guess, I don't know how best to phrase it, but is that their true thoughts? I mean, is that their true communication method? I mean, it's not necessarily of course you're always going to have the verbal and the external, communication, to read, but you can't take that necessarily for granted, right? You can't take that for granted. So, just explain that a little bit further, if you would. I don't know if you can, but that would be fascinating to learn a little bit more about that.
Well, I just think, like I said, it's a mind-body disconnect. He says many times, and I've heard this through other autistic people that are doing the letterboard, they cannot stop their mouths or their bodies from doing certain things. Like he has a habit of picking the stitching of his clothing apart. So, and I'll say to him a million times, Gregory, please don't do that because you're ruining your clothes. And he'll say to you, I don't want to do it. I just keep doing it. And I don't know why. They get stuck in these motor loops in their mind that they can't stop. And I don't know, something about the letterboard. I'm not a scientist. I don't understand how it works, but the thought of him, he's doing this purposeful motor thing, somehow it overrides that stuff, and he's able to tell you his true thought. I mean, every time I ask him something, I never ask him verbally. I always give him the chance to spell it out, because I feel like that's his true
That's
response.
his true self. That's his true response.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I'm sure that it's been a learning experience for both of you.
Yeah.
Right? Not just for you, Linda, but also for Gregory, because you're learning how he's learning in his brain how you're also responding to him too. So it's both.
It's hard because sometimes he'll say something to me. He'll be like, no matter what, don't give me this. What, I don't know, whatever it is. Like, say we're trying to have him eat more healthy, and he'll be like, don't let me have this. But verbally, he'll be asking you for that thing. And it feels wrong, right? Because he's verbally asking you for something, and you're not giving it to him. You know what I'm saying? You have to learn.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, it's a lot of learning how to deal with this. You know, I don't know.
That's right. That's right. And I want to ask that last question that we did for in advance. And then, of course, we can do other questions to you, or even if he wants to do it in real time. But why is Christmas important to you? Here we are on Christmas Eve, celebrating Christ's birth. And why is Christmas important to you?
So he said, Christmas is a time of being with family and friends. The thing I value most is my family. They have helped me through my struggles with autism. They are always there for me. He loves his family. This kid, I get a million hugs and kisses a day. And he loves being with family. He, you know, and we love being with him. I just, I could spend all my time with him. He's the best.
It's incredible.
Praise God. Praise God. So is there anything else that either of you wanted to share about your family, and tell us a little bit more about, you know, life either before, you know, before children, before marriage, or even like the rest of your family members, things that you might want to share?
We're just the basic Havertown family. My husband's a physician at Penn Presbyterian, and you know, I have two other kids. I don't want them to get overshadowed by, I have two other younger kids. And life was hard in the early years when you have an autistic son and then two younger kids and a husband who's working very long hours. It was a rough time, but now I see, you know, God's plan that he had for us. And the hope is we can help some people with autism. That's our goal. I hope people do read his book. It has a lot of advice about autism. He explains everything, why they do the things they do, everything about autism. If you want to learn about autism, his book is called The Autistic Mind Finally Speaks. It's on Amazon. And we're donating all, you know, there's very little profit. It was self-published on Amazon. Unfortunately, Amazon takes a lot of the cut, but we're giving all profit to Inside Voice in the hopes that other people can be helped. But it's a great book. Can I read you something else that he wrote?
Please do.
Please.
It was amazing. And since it's Christmas Eve, I thought this would be perfect. This is a blog post that he did recently called Santa and the Autistic Boy. One day in December, the autistic boy began to write a list to Santa. First, he wanted the voice of a manly person with a deep baritone sound. Next, he wanted an athletic body that would play any sport and run faster than the wind. Finally, he wanted the best life ever with tons of friends and the girlfriend of his dreams. He mailed the letter to Santa and then waited for Christmas. On Christmas morning, he woke up and tried to talk. The words were scripted from TV shows, and his voice sounded like Barney. At first, he was mad, but then he said, autism is doing this to me, but it's fun to talk like this. It's not so bad. Next, he went outside to take a run, but when he tried, his body was spastic and uncoordinated. At first, he was mad, but then he said, autism is doing this to me, but I think it's fun to jump up and down and flap my arms. It's not so bad. Finally, the autistic boy tried to live the life he always dreamed of, but he missed his old life and friends. Then he realized Santa had already given him his gifts. Thanks, Santa, and Merry Christmas, he said. You're welcome, replied Santa, but I have one more gift for you. He handed the boy a letterboard, and you know the rest of the story.
Once again, I feel like I'm going to cry.
He does that to me all the time. His writings are just, they're poetic. I'm prejudiced because he's my son, but I think he's rather amazing.
It's beautiful, and I really do encourage people to buy a copy of the book because that's powerful. He provides such a beautiful window into. I mean, the writings that you share with us are incredible. He's gonna provide an incredible window into this, and I think it's gonna help a lot of people to recognize and realize that. A lot of parents out there. I think it's just going to help a lot of parents recognize and realize the incredible gifts and the incredible mind that not only he has, but probably all those struggling with autism have.
Yes. They all have their own gifts. In his book, I told you there are 4 other non-speakers who illustrated, and you got to see the beautiful artwork that they make, the paintings and the pictures. They're all very, very talented if given the chance. You just have to give them the chance. I hope a lot of people, I would like to let you know, in our area, the place that Gregory goes to is called Inside Voice, and they're located in Springfield, Delaware County. The website that you could go to look them up is www.alive.org, and Alive is AALIVE.org, which stands for Autism, Adults with Autism Living with Independence, Value, and Esteem. And there, you can learn about the letterboard. And they're just doing, such great work. The Foti family has really, it's a nonprofit, and they're just doing such great stuff for our kids. I can't even thank them enough. I don't know. I don't know why God did this for us. I'm just thankful he did.
Thank you. We are so thankful too. And we would love possibly to host them at some point. I think they'd be great guests for us on Sowing Hope. Bill, what do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this entire topic is just such a fascinating one, and I don't say that in a demeaning way. I say it in a way that I think is opening a lot of eyes for people right now, and a lot of ears for people right now, because I just truly believe that the Holy Spirit put you on tonight's show on Christmas Eve to make those divine appointments. It's typically a night where families are just more together, or either they're up late at night, putting trees, Christmas trees, together, and all the different gifts for their kids underneath of them. And I just think that people that are a little bit more receptive to God's grace on an evening like tonight. And so I just really appreciate your openness to share with us, and really just open your heart. You got to, and there's so much hope. There's so much hope being shared here that this is definitely one of the top episodes of our show, Sowing Hope. It fits the definition perfectly of what our show's all about.
It does. I'm so grateful to God. But grateful also that Tracy introduced us.
Oh, me too. Wow. Facebook is good for some things, right?
It really is. It really is.
That's how it came about. I mean, after I posted some stuff that my son said, I have really seen the nice side of people. Lots of people,
Amen.
Lots of support. It's not all bad out there.
No. That's right. Tracy's a wonderful person too, who has given me quite a few guests, not only for this show, but another online TV show that I was involved with called The Positive Side. which I'm no longer doing that, but doing something else, doing this and doing Journeys in Faith, another show. So thank you, Tracy. Yeah. Linda, I wondered if you could you talked about that day on Mother's Day, and that was a wonderful breakthrough for you. If you could talk to us also how from that point, how that impacted every day since then to you in your life.
My life did a 180 that day in every possible way. And I just, like I said, in the way I treated him, the way I interacted with him, the way I viewed other autistic people, I was just so thankful that day. I don't know why God did that for us, but I'm so thankful he chose us to give us that gift. I have it on video because they videotape every session. It's rather embarrassing because I was dissolved into a blubbering puddle on the floor. I'm not even kidding. Like, if you can imagine 25 years having this kid that you thought you knew, and all of a sudden that day you're introduced to this kid, I'm like, this is my son. I don't know. God, I look back on that sometimes and I'll relive that moment. And he has said too, many times he wishes to relive that moment. It was, I wish everybody could have that. I really do. Just give them a chance. Try it. You're not going to lose anything by just trying and believing in our kids.
Well, I have a feeling also, Linda and Gregory, that as you're listening to this podcast, now this is pre-recorded, we will admit, that as you're listening to this on Christmas Eve, that this is another gift from God, that on this day, the celebration of the birth of Christ, that you can talk about these things. And I just want to thank you and congratulate you for being a wonderful mother, a wonderful parent, and wife and friend to others, I'm sure. And Gregory, for all of your hard work and for being such a wonderful son and a wonderful friend and brother, and just for all the gifts of who you both are and your family. I want to thank you from us, from Sowing Hope.
And I want to thank you for having us and listening to what he has to say. I know it feels good after 25 years of people not listening to you when they finally can. I appreciate everything.
Yeah, what a great lesson. Do you want to just ask Gregory, just any final messages, or maybe there's somebody out there struggling with autism that's listening to this? Would he have a message for somebody struggling with autism? To share. H-A-T, that. T-H-E-R-E, there. I-S is H-E-L-P, help. A-N-D, and P-E-O-P-L-P, people, W-H-O, who, C-A-R-E, people who care, O-U-T, out, T-H-E-R-E, people out there who care. I got myself mixed up. Out there who care, T-O-2-H-E-L-P, to help, Y-O-U, to help you.
People out there to help you. Thank you, Gregory.
Thank you. Well, this has been this has been awesome, and I just really appreciate, again, you guys coming on and sharing your lives, and we have to have you back on for sure, because there's so much more to learn from both of you, and again, give the information out, for people about the book and about the the resources that you have to help those families. Just one
and
more
the blog
time. And
right?
the blog, yeah.
Yeah, his blog is The Autistic Mind Finally Speaks, and it's on WordPress. You could just Google it and find it on WordPress. Again, the organization that Gregory goes to for Letterboard is Inside Voice through Alive, AALIVE. And if you want more information about spelling to communicate, there's also iask.org. It's an association for educating, training, and resources for spelling to communicate. Their website is i-asc.org, which it stands for International Association for Spelling as Communication. That one was developed by Elizabeth Vossler, the woman who did that first Letterboard training session. And these people are just changing the world for people with autism.
I want to thank them.
I thank them every day. Every night we pray to God and thank God for what he's done for us.
Praise God. Thank you, Lord. And thank you, Linda. And thank you, Gregory.
Yes. Thank you for having us. And we hope to be back again.
Oh, definitely.
You will
count
be.
on it. You can count on it. Well,
Merry Christmas.
Yes, Merry Christmas to you guys as well. And Merry Christmas to everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, this has been just an awesome episode. And know that we will be back with you next week. We always have great guests. I don't know who's coming up next, Dan, but it's going to be a great show, as I know it will be. So thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in, and may you have a Merry Christmas.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, Lawrence. Hooray! Hooray! Hooray!
Thanks for listening to this episode of Sowing Hope on Patchwork Heart Radio. For more information about this podcast and our ministries, visit our websites, patchworkheart.org and andesantis.com. You can also follow and interact with us on Twitter at PWH Ministry or Andy Santis 2.